I'd like to talk to him about this dragon.
It's a dragon.
It was a very stylish film, a box office hit, with atrocious scenes of sexual abuse. All that the public enjoy. Yet this film is not as good as the other films reviewed on our channel, but it's still better than what the general audience might think of it. It has something worth thinking about. The director of the film didn't put the dynamics between characters that well. Maybe the producer or rights owner messed that up as they did to another of Fincher's films, Alien 3, where he explores the topics of the Great Dragon, the religion and the order. Even so, that film has some noteworthy things. The general audience usually disrespects the filmmakers and writers, their attempts, their days and nights of work on the script, what they were trying to say, and just devours any flashy content they are being presented with. But the subscribers of this channel look deeper and might have some questions about the film's plot. The first question: why would someone hire Blomkvist for the investigation? What is he? A detective? No, he is a bad journalist. Why would someone hire the girl with the dragon tattoo? Who is she? A genius? That's what, according to reviews, the general audience thinks. She, supposedly, works as a hacker in some big organization, right? She is probably paid well. So where is her money? Why does she have to have sex for food?
Am I going to have to do this every time I need money to eat?
Maybe because she is not a hacker. She is a middleman that pretends that she is a hacker. Both choices are odd. Second, why did Martin forget his gun? Why did he forget to close the door to his basement? He isn't a sloppy technician like his father was.
You can't be a sloppy technician like that. It's a science with 1,000 details. Planning.
Third, why didn't he just hit the brakes and smash the girl on the motorcycle? Did he forget that he is a serial killer and can actually kill her? He wasn't in shock, he was driving at a high speed on the winter road. Looks like he didn't really try to kill her. 4. They were waiting for like 40 years before hiring a journalist.
This is Harriet.
Were they even looking for Harriet? The biggest organization in the area can't track the packages she was sending them every year. They had her photo. They knew how she would look like. It makes no sense. 5. Martin says something odd, that touching his father was his and Harriet's duty.
In fact, I've never touched a man, except my father. It was our duty. Harriet's and mine.
Duty. We strongly advise watching our Metaphysic in 25 minutes or less video, where the mystery of the dragon and logos is being explained as the core foundation of Western culture and civilization. Otherwise, this video might be seen as unreasonably dark. So, the film is about power and corruption among high-ranking businessmen. Wennerstrom and the Vanger family. Wennerstrom launders drugs and arms trafficking money. The Vanger family is linked to Nazis and bloody rituals. The film is kind of asking, why is the power always corrupted? Corrupted on all levels. Even Lizbeth's guardian, a minor governmental clerk, is an abuser. What is it in human nature that always turns things that way? Supposedly, the only solution to this, according to the very heart of leftist theory, is to dehumanize humans, erase any personality traits, all that anti-socialist propaganda was talking about. Replace humans with artificial intellect machines, perfect genetically engineered creatures, transhumanism, all those things the contemporary world is so hyped about. Decentralize power so there would be no powerful persons, no power, and no corruption. But before that happens, before we all happily dip into the state of total equality, where no sense can be produced, as sense is the synonym of power, let's analyze what was shown in this film. Any power holds on transgression. Shortly explained, transgression means overcoming and/or violating the prohibition which comes from order. And if you are going to read more on transgression after this video, don't take the order and prohibition naively, like they come from an authority, from a person or state. We are talking about a fundamental order that sets the scene, that is more fundamental than the so-called fundamental laws of physics. As the laws of physics were invented by a man that was already involved in some scene, they are imaginary. That's how humans imagine the physical world works. But obviously without a man, without the observer, there are no laws of physics. This idea is not new at all. It is known for at least 2,000 years, the metaphor of Genesis. The creationism model is about that. Sane people among Jewish priests are not that stupid as to believe that there literally was nothing before a man. They know that even if there was something before a man, it's irrelevant, as there was no one to see it. And every theory and conception about that would be biased by our imperfect and limited human mind. What do they present to the public to promote it? All those religions, fundamentalist views? In what myths do they wrap that terrifying idea is a different question. But according to Jews, and also to Christians and Muslims, our world, the human world, was created the same day when the first human was created, and that was the beginning of the history. As there was no history, no concepts of laws and other naive products of the human mind before human. This metaphor here is not to promote any religious views, but to question what is order as a prime organizing principle and on what basis it holds ground. Let's say if the governmental power, in the sense of power that affects and organizes individuals, becomes shaky, civil institutions start falling apart. The leader has to do something to solidify it. How do you solidify something that is not material? Through transgression, for example, to start a little war, perform a terrorist act, or perform some sacrifice. Spill the blood. The great dragon, which was the symbol of the governmental power for thousands of years, demands blood. The sacrifice, the act of transgression, the act of the violation of the law that claims the law, that is a very difficult thought to catch, as it is basically a precursor of logic. It's unthinkable. To think the unthinkable, we create myths, like the great dragon demands blood, and for that blood, it gives power. Superhuman power. As obviously the power that, for example, the state or corporation governs individuals with, is superhuman power. Top-notch philosophers like Foucault or Baudrillard have said that the power is a superhuman power. It doesn't belong to some individual or to a group of individuals. And after careful analysis, that we have a very strange societal construction. Let's say a shopping mall in your city is the reason why you were born. That it's not humans that build the mall for their convenience. It is the mall that decides if the area is good for him. If the area can give him enough food, enough human resources, that nurtures the area like a farmer nurtures the land to give him grain, or rather how farmers nurture their livestock. Humans did not only build shopping malls for their own convenience. Humans are not even individuals that suffer from imposed consumerism that alienates them from the spirit and existence, blah blah blah, and other nonsense the discourse mongers spread. As in the perspective in which a company is a source of human activity and life in general, consuming and being consumed is the only reality available for humans. People consume, buy fancy clothes, gadgets, and post it all on Instagram, not because they want to show off, but because that is the only life they can live. They are not handicapped or retarded. That is their life as a species. And one should remember that farming livestock can be done for the milk and can be done for the meat. The meat comes from the slaughterhouse, like the war zone. The war denies civil laws, thereby claims them. You can't deny the non-existent. Something exists only if it's being denied. That's the set of oppositions, the beginning of logic. That means there are things we can't easily understand without creating really weird
We
bent
cannot
models.
let the terrorists achieve the objective of frightening our nation to the point where we don't conduct business, where people don't shop.
So who is Martin and Henrik? Their organization has 20,000 employees. Assuming that half of them have conservative families with kids, the organization supplies at least 30,000 people with food, shelter, and pension. Yet they yearly practice human sacrifices, killing prostitutes, zoophiles, and other women. They are considered as maniacs. And just for your consideration and comparison, a single NATO pilot, according to UN statistics, on average, kills at least 20 people daily without even engaging the fight, dropping bombs from a distance, making at least 30,000 victims per year just in Syria to protect the democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous
It's amusing,
to our democracy.
but they are not
This is
lying. They
extremely
sincerely
dangerous
believe
to our
when they say that they
This is
protect
extremely
their
dangerous
democracy
to our
by starting
democracy.
wars far
This is
outside of their
extremely
countries.
dangerous to our...
They speak in code.
dangerous to our
We all
democracy.
speak in code.
This is extremely
We are not
dangerous to
defending
our
people like
democracy.
Martin and Henrik,
Extremely dangerous
and we
to
are
our
not
democracy.
demonizing anyone
This
on
is
our channel
extremely
ever.
dangerous
We
to
just
our
say how it
democracy.
really is
This is
and how it
extremely
works.
dangerous to our
Moreover,
democracy.
everyone is aware that NATO soldiers kill millions of unarmed civilians supposedly to protect the democracy, and everyone is fine with it, living normal lives, neighboring with killers like nothing is happening. And again, we are not accusing NATO and citizens that are okay with NATO's actions, and even support it with tax money. We don't stand on moral positions or call for actions. The mechanism described above is only to show how power and transgression works. It's very important, and it's very hard to catch. Everyone is aware, at the same time everyone is clueless, and everyone obeys.
Come on in. I'll make you a drink.
Why did Blomkvist follow Martin into his house when he knew that it was a trap? He thought that he was smarter and would outsmart him, didn't he? That is resentment.
Let me ask you something. Why don't people trust their instincts? They sense something is wrong, someone is walking too close behind them. You knew something was wrong. You came back into the house. Did I force you? Did I drag you in? No.
That's how the power works. Or another example that matters to everyone. Why do we buy overpriced stuff, even if we know that it's unreasonably overpriced? You buy a table for $200, a table which production and the logistics price is $40. You worked your ass off for that money. Why do you give it to someone? No one is forcing you. Yet protesting it like the Occupy Wall Street protesters did is not a solution. Before doing that, the grounds of the phenomenon should be thought over and understood, despite the fact that being controlled by unknown power can make a clever and decent man very angry.
You knew something was wrong. Did I force you? Did I drag you in? No. They always come willingly. And then they sit there. They know it's all over, just like you do.
In our last video on Spartacus, we already touched on the topic of the order and why a slave obeys the master and can't do anything about it. It may have seemed that it was about a master that has captured and controls the resources, and the slave has to serve the master because of that. But the elites among our subscribers, our patrons, surely noticed that it had something to do with death, with the dimension it guards or provides as an agent.
All I had to do was offer you a drink. It's hard to believe that fear of offending can be stronger than the fear of pain, but you know what? It is.
We hope that it becomes more clear now. However, the topic of transgression does not end here. One may ask why a war veteran doesn't become a master, the one who supposedly sits at the White House, controls the public and provides the order. Army and military were initially invented as an institution that creates masters, initiates boys to men. And even nowadays, soldiers can be seen as masters. They are the ones who suppress slave rebellions and so-called violent protest, if any occur, with an extreme force. Centuries ago, a warrior, a military member, had to go through transgressive initiation practices upon being accepted as a member. For example, a novice in ancient Greece, Cryptia, Sparta, had to catch and kill the first person from farmers he encounters. Its goal and nature is still a matter of discussion and debate among historians. It was, and it's still considered, as a terrifying cruelty. But the history shows such things seem to be necessary, as no other method have survived. We've got what we've got. As we said, the topic of transgression does not end here. It has levels. As above soldiers and warriors, there is a higher instance that provides the order, the so-called priesthood. In The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo film, Harriet kills his father. She decides to make the coming out about that, not because she feels sorry, but because she wants to suffer. She identifies herself as a victim. If she were in fact being abused, it's all in the past. No need to carry it. But she is contaminated with victimity. She masochistically enjoys that, and of course police and court would find her as an offender, not a defender, which would make her feel herself as a victim of the government now. Also note that she was reading the Bible, probably to annoy her relatives, who were all atheists.
And then she'd be studying her Bible like a nun. No Van Gogh was ever religious, can you imagine? She was obviously...
Henrik sends her away so there would be no one around her to play a victim for. A person always plays something for the other, not for himself. He sends her away, expels her from the high society, which is usually full of very prominent characters, endless parties, which would definitely turn her into something like Varinya from our Spartacus video.
But she's an impossible woman.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, well, beautiful. The more chains you put on her, the less like a slave she looks.
Proud.
Proud.
And Harriet. She was bright, curious, a winning combination in any person.
Well, she was 16.
And very bright. Henrik told me, and many others, he could easily see her running the company one day.
Sends her away to save her and the company that gives the employment for thousands from falling down. A murder is a transgression only if the murderer is fully aware of what he is doing, if he is conscious, if he is, in fact, destroying the imminent for the sake of transcendent. But if a murderer just kills out of resentment, he just multiplies his resentment. Harriet killed her father, but he is still torturing her in her imagination. However, years later, Henrik found a way to rescue Harriet from her slave position. For this, Henrik had to make Harriet realize something she didn't realize before. And here is what Lizbeth was needed for. Both Harriet and Lizbeth are victims of abuse. But what does the word victim mean? Being a victim is like having a hole in your energy body that drains your energy. Whatever you do becomes useless. Being a victim, identifying yourself as a victim, excludes you from the world of actions. That's why any activism, including political, brings the opposite of what he was standing for. However, victims usually don't think of themselves as victims. The victim thinks himself as a secret superhero. A victim believes that she has the best intention for the corrupted world and she is not a part of it, that she does nothing wrong.
I want you to help me catch a killer of women.
Why did Lizbeth engage in the investigation? A lot of people love to identify themselves as a victim, as a holy warrior of justice. That's how they justify their dishonest actions. A victim always protects other victims, protects in a way that claims the victim as a victim, taking all power out of the victim, all responsibility, and giving it to the offender. Some even develop the Stockholm Syndrome, where the victim falls in love with the offender. In their imagination, the supposed offender is so powerful. So sometimes, they try to demand something from this instance. The popular reading of Christianity is all about that. Maybe on the level of the content of what a victim says. She says the right things, but on the level of the act and intonation, a victim creates the offender for his own pleasure. That's the death drive in action. Lizbeth's death drive is so powerful that others can't ignore it. Death drive is the power that moves an organism towards its death, the opposite of life power. A victim often is looking for trouble to feed her galactic-sized ego, that the whole world is here to torture her. This guy steals her bag and then just stands and waits for her to come and beat him. She comes out as a victor from the situation. Both came up as victors. He is a helpless victim of the tyrannical society and has to steal, but the society made him so helpless that he can't even steal a bag from a girl. She defeated another evil that tries to ruin her life. The life of Lizbeth is full of such kinds of victories. You can't prove her anything. Often such kind of people are being picked up and used by people who hold political power and make a public idol out of them. People love them, listen to them, ready to execute their secret, subconscious wishes, like this guy at the subway station.
This is Martin Banger.
How do you do?
Fine.
Lisbeth, Mr. Dirk Frodo.
How do you do?
It just looks that Lizbeth means business, doesn't like cheap talk,
Something wrong with the report?
and even does not care about her appearance. The director highlights her tattered t-shirt, but her haircut is very complex. She has to maintain it daily and trim her hairs on a weekly basis. What is she doing? What does she try to achieve? She tries to make some impression. She portrays herself as a poor submissive kid and asking for violent actions against her. Some people love BDSM, submissive or dominant roles. They try to address, to sublimate their wishes in a civil way, in an arranged setting, with a partner, by their agreement. But Lizbeth involves others into this game without their consent.
I got a call from our archives manager. She was very perturbed with this girl, Lisbeth.
She enjoys being a victim. Even this episode, she brings her gift and tries to do a proposal to Blomkvist, to the place where she would definitely meet him with his girlfriend. She knew that. She knew how many times per week Blomkvist performs oral sex with his girlfriend.
Not often enough, in my opinion.
That she would meet him with his girlfriend was obvious. She didn't want to just leave him. She wanted to make it look like he betrayed her. She even invested money into that. That's how many people stay poor. They donate huge money to bastards, instead of investing a little in their own development, like buying and reading a book, or like our Patreons do. So, what were the Henriks waiting for so many years? For the right candidate. Initiates that failed their battle versus the 4 enemies still have the knowledge and principles they earned on their previous levels. Martin, perhaps, was a 3rd level initiate. He can handle the truth. He is obviously a master. That shot in the woods when the bullet scratched Blomkvist's forehead, that is a shot of a master.
No what's harder than shooting someone. Just missing him.
Martin doesn't just kill his victims, but he talks to them.
We can talk or we can just get on with it.
And as he says, everyone has the same face when he does that.
Just like you do. But somehow they still think they have a chance. Maybe if I say the right thing. And when I see the hope draining from their face like it is from yours right now.
They all realize something, that the whole of their lives have been lies. Before killing them, he exposes them. That's an execution, not just a kill. That's how an executioner kills a criminal that was exposed by the court of law. After which it's considered that the criminal becomes free of what he has done. It is very important in what state of mind a person dies, as in his rebirth, he will keep that state of mind. Ideally, his mind should be free. So Martin picks a person, studies him, exposes and fixes his state of mind by killing him. Otherwise, the next day the person recovers his state of mind with the habits that his body has collected through his life. Just like Blomkvist returns to his usual life of a 0 after all was over. It is very unlikely that Harriet, in her young age, did the same thing with her father. She just murdered him. So the plan was to find the right candidate. A mirror for her. Their similarities suggested in the plot, camera shots, and editing.
Curious. A winning combination in any person.
She's one of the best investigators I had. She's different.
In what way?
In every way.
Not many girls kill their fathers.
I tried to kill my father. Burned him alive.
Mr. Frodo probably has run a background check of Lizbeth. He then hires her to run a background check for a few male candidates and looks at her reaction if she likes someone. She liked Blomkvist. It is shown on her face. She acts normal in other conditions.
Naturally, you have the clearing codes.
Naturally.
How many accounts will you be transferring?
30.
This will take some time.
For which you will receive a 4% commission.
I will.
Then it won't be a waste of it.
But here she is confused, and it was shown that she was surveilling Blomkvist after the job was done. She has a crush on him. Mr. Frodo hires Blomkvist, supposedly to run an investigation, then offers him a helper.
I know an excellent one. Well, you don't think we can hire just anyone?
Now they are together, and through Blomkvist, they can control Lizbeth.
It didn't work. I'm here.
Mikael, it did work. You're here.
Then they make Blomkvist and Lizbeth get into Martin's basement.
Can't thank you enough for bringing her to me.
So Lizbeth becomes a full copy of Harriet. Martin would have to torture them like Harriet's father tortured Harriet. And then, this part of the film is very crumpled up, as we said at the beginning of this video. The dynamics between Martin, Henrik, Frodo and Harriet make little sense. Even the second attempt to make this film didn't make it good. We are talking about the Swedish version of the film, a total garbage that came up a few years before Fincher's version. But by all logic, Martin didn't want to kill Blomkvist and Lizbeth. That's why he didn't kill them when he had all the chances. They were needed alive. Then Lizbeth goes to Harriet, and Harriet now has a chance to see herself. A victim. A father killer. A flop. It would be a much better film if they would have shown that Martin kills himself by lighting a lighter, not letting Lizbeth shoot him, as police would see the bullet wound, capture her, and spoil all plans. Notice that Martin does not think and does not identify himself as a victim.
That was our duty. Harriet's and mine.
He says that it was his duty. If his father weren't a monster, workers wouldn't listen to him, and the company would collapse. Were Martin and Henrik initiates? It's hard to say. They were maintaining a huge company. They were in charge of 30,000 people, who just can't organize in any other way. They probably were initiates, but in some moment of their lives, they lost their battle with one of the enemies of an initiate. This picture on the History of Metaphysics from Plato to Deleuze can help to visualize their position. The transgressive forces of life and thought mix together, forming our world. On their respective sides, they are absolutely clear and available to be reached, for very dedicated persons like monks only. Monks live in a constant transgression. Their life of a monk laid out the way that is just impossible in normal living conditions. In fact, in their case, it's not even a transgression, as their life has almost nothing to do with the ordinary life. They simply live in another world. So, the sides of the map are conditional sides of the pure life and the pure thought, and the middle ground takes power from dragon and structure from logos, forming our world. The scale that we have shown in the last video, the middle ground is the land of those who lost the battle with the 4 enemies of the warrior. They lost their battle, but they are not dead. For example, the one who loses the battle with clarity becomes very good and very confident in something. He might start a school, become a prophet, a pastor, but he is done. He will hold for his confidence, and it won't let him go further. Of course, all these levels are conditional, and it is all hypothetical. For example, Plato, despite being a colossus of philosophy, didn't even try to sort this out, putting the pure life and the pure thought out of the world into the transcendent dimension, leaving all people in the cave. The metaphor of the Platonic cave is very suitable here. Martin and Henrik are ones who left the cave, returned to help others as Plato recommends, but got lost there on some of its levels again. When Lizbeth and Blomkvist never ever tried to find the exit and content themselves with being resentful, screaming to attract the attention somewhere at the bottom of the cave. That's all for now. Like the video, share it, subscribe, and become our patron, and don't get lost.
It's here! We got Clement!
Stop this raving at once!
I'm
Stop
telling you! It's here!
it! And get that foolish woman back to the infirmary!